A dark ride is supposed to be the one attraction in a theme park where being frightened is the entire point. You expect the jump scares. You expect the things that lunge at you from the dark, the corridors that narrow, the sounds designed to make your pulse climb before you've even seen what's coming. That's the contract. You pay for a controlled, artificial fear, and the ride delivers it. And then the doors open, and you're back in daylight, laughing at yourself for flinching. The 4 rides in this video broke that contract in a way no amount of theming could have warned you about. In each case, something real happened inside a space built entirely out of fake horror. And in each case, the ride either vanished quietly or reopened with almost nobody outside the company ever learning the full story of what had occurred inside it. Not because the parks lied, necessarily, because nobody asked the follow-up question. 4 dark rides, 4 closures. Here's what actually happened. This is Abandoned Thrills. Please like and subscribe for more great stories and to support the channel. Thanks. Let's begin. There was a sign near the front gates of Six Flags Great Adventure that summer, spelled out in flowers, that read, "We care about you." Inside the park, the haunted castle had been operating for 5 years by 1984, despite originally being built as a temporary test attraction for a single off-season. It was constructed from 17 aluminum semi-trailers, connected and arranged into a maze of narrow corridors. Because it had no permanent foundation, the local building inspector determined it didn't require a building permit and wasn't subject to the same fire codes that would have applied to a permanent structure. That single classification, temporary, meant the haunted castle never had sprinklers, never had smoke alarms, and was never formally inspected by the township fire inspector, who would later testify under oath that he had simply never been inside it. Park safety consultants had recommended sprinklers and alarms be installed. The recommendation was made more than once. It was never acted on. At approximately 6:35 on the evening of May 11, 1984, a group of friends entered the attraction together, high school seniors and recent graduates from the area, in the building for what should have been a few minutes of cheap scares before getting back in line for something else. Inside, the corridors were dark because many of the lights had burned out. One of the visitors used a cigarette lighter to see his way down the passage. He bumped into a wall and ignited foam rubber padding that had been installed for the theming. The materials inside the haunted castle, foam padding, fabric, plywood, tar paper, were almost all highly flammable. Air conditioning units mounted on the building's exterior continued pumping air up through floor vents even after the fire started, feeding it. The fire spread through the entire structure in minutes. About 29 people were inside when it began. 14 escaped, including 4 employees. 7 others made it out, but were taken to a local hospital for smoke inhalation. 8 teenagers, ranging from 15 to 19 years old, did not make it out at all. The cause of death for all 8 was asphyxiation. 7 of them were found within 25 feet of an exit they never reached. Six Flags and its parent company were indicted on charges of aggravated manslaughter, accused of recklessly causing the deaths under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to human life. At trial in Toms River, prosecutors laid out the safety consultants' ignored recommendations in detail. No sprinklers, no smoke alarms, no fire retardant material, insufficient exits for a structure of that size and occupancy. After an 8-week trial, the jury acquitted the company on every charge. The jury foreman, in remarks after the verdict, placed the blame on Jackson Township officials for repeatedly allowing the castle to exploit flaws in the fire code. The families of the victims later settled a separate civil suit against the park's then owner, Bally Manufacturing. No individual employee or executive was ever convicted of any crime in connection with the deaths. What the fire did produce in the years that followed was the creation of NFPA 101's Special Amusement Building Code, a national fire safety standard specifically written to close the loophole that let a structure full of flammable theming, foam padding, and narrow maze corridors avoid the fire protections required of every other occupied building in America. Every haunted attraction, every walk-through dark ride built after 1984 exists inside the regulatory framework that 8 teenagers died proving was necessary. The night before opening day for a brand new season, a roofing crew was finishing last-minute repairs on one of Dreamland's most popular attractions, a dark boat ride called Hellgate, which carried guests through dim, cavern-like tunnels meant to evoke a journey through the underworld. A leak in the boat trough needed sealing. The crew was working with hot tar. At around 1:30 in the morning, the light bulbs illuminating the work area began to explode, possibly from an electrical fault. In the sudden darkness, someone kicked over a bucket of hot pitch. Hellgate was on fire within moments. The workers tried briefly to fight it. By the time they returned with extinguishing equipment, the flames were already in the rafters. They ran. A night watchman saw the glow, sprinted to the administration building, and pulled the fire alarm at 1:58 in the morning. Fire crews from a station only 100 yards away responded almost instantly and discovered that water pressure at the hydrants was dropping rapidly, far below what the brand new high-pressure system had been designed to deliver. Their hoses fell short of the flames. Dreamland was 10 acres of densely packed, ornately decorated wooden buildings, connected walkway to walkway, structure to structure. The fire that started in one dark ride's boat trough did not stay contained to that ride for more than a few minutes. Adjacent to Hellgate was Bostock's Animal Arena, a menagerie of trained performing animals, including 7 lions, a bear named Theodore Roosevelt, and dozens of other creatures. When firefighters cut the electrical power to fight the blaze, the arena went dark, and the animals, already terrified by the fire and the noise, turned on each other and their handlers in the confusion. Trainers fled. 60 to 80 animals died in the fire, some from the flames, some from each other, in scenes witnesses described as among the most horrifying of the entire night. One lion broke free, ran burning down Surf Avenue, climbed onto a nearby ride, and was shot dead by police in the street. A 374-foot tower at the heart of the park collapsed at just past 3 in the morning, sending a column of smoke and flame estimated at 1,200 feet into the night sky, visible up to 15 miles away. By dawn, all 10 acres of Dreamland were gone. The financial loss was estimated between $2 and $3 million, an enormous sum in 1911. No human beings died in the fire. The park's owners had not arranged adequate insurance coverage for a loss of this scale, and Dreamland was never rebuilt. Most people who know Coney Island's history today know Luna Park and Steeplechase Park, both of which survived for decades afterward. Far fewer know that Dreamland, once the largest and most architecturally ambitious amusement park in America, was wiped off the map in 3.5 hours because of a leak in a dark ride's boat trough and a bucket of tar. There's a 5th story that almost made this list: the ghost train fire at Luna Park, Sydney in 1979. 7 people killed, a botched police investigation, and decades-old allegations that the true cause was suppressed by a corrupt detective on the payroll of organized crime. It is one of the most disturbing dark ride stories that exists, and it deserved its own full investigation rather than a few minutes inside a compilation. We've already covered it in complete detail in a previous video. The link is in the description and on screen now if you want the full story. For this video, we're moving on to two closures that almost nobody outside the parks themselves ever fully understood. Blackpool Pleasure Beach operates 145 rides on a single, densely packed seafront site. One of the most concentrated collections of historic amusement attractions anywhere in Britain. On the evening of May 20th, 2004, a fire broke out in the queuing station for the Grand National, a wooden racing coaster, late in the evening while the park was closed to the public. Security staff raised the alarm at around 9:20 p.m. 10 fire crews responded. The blaze spread beyond the Grand National's queue line to two neighboring dark rides, Alice in Wonderland and an attraction called Trauma Towers. A park spokesperson at the time told reporters the damage was contained to 3 of the park's 145 rides, and that none of them were beyond repair. The investigation that followed identified the cause as an electrical fault in the station's lighting system. Arson was ruled out. The Grand National station was fully rebuilt, and the ride reopened on October 28, 2004. Alice in Wonderland was eventually restored and returned to operation. Trauma Towers did not reopen. No closure date was announced. No farewell statement. No public accounting of what specifically had been damaged beyond repair, or why this particular attraction, unlike its two neighbors, would not be coming back. The park simply moved forward, and Trauma Towers quietly ceased to exist as its own attraction without the public ever being formally told it had ended. The ride that disappeared without announcement is, for most Blackpool visitors today, not even a memory. Most people walking through that section of the park have no idea an attraction once stood there that a single night ended permanently. The fire that started it was explained. The closure that followed never was. There is a particular kind of irony in this last story that doesn't require any embellishment. Phantom Manor is Disneyland Paris's version of the Haunted Mansion, a dark ride built around the fictional tragedy of a bride abandoned at the altar, her ghost said to wander the corridors of a decaying Old West mansion for eternity. It is, by design, a building meant to evoke death. Every detail of its theming, the cobwebs, the portraits that age before your eyes, the ballroom of dancing spirits, exists specifically to make guests feel like they've wandered into a haunted house where something genuinely terrible happened. On April 2nd, 2016, something genuinely terrible happened. A 45-year-old cast member was working backstage on the ride's lighting systems, the unglamorous infrastructure work that keeps a dark ride's effects functioning, invisible to the guests who only ever see the finished illusion. He was found dead inside the attraction. The cause was determined to be accidental electrocution. The ride was closed pending investigation. What makes this story different from the other 3 in this video is its scale and its visibility. This wasn't 8 deaths, or 60 animals, or an entire amusement park burning to the ground in a single night. It was one man doing electrical maintenance work inside a building designed to look haunted, who died from exactly the kind of mundane workplace hazard that exists behind the scenes of every powered attraction in every theme park in the world. Frayed wiring, an exposed connection, a system that wasn't fully de-energized before someone reached into it. Disneyland Paris's public statements at the time were limited to confirming the death and the closure pending investigation. The ride reopened, Millions of guests have ridden through Phantom Manor since April 2016, walking past the same backstage lighting infrastructure with essentially no public memory that a man died maintaining it. The ride's entire premise is built on a ghost story nobody believes is real. Somewhere behind its walls, in April 2016, something genuinely fatal happened that almost nobody who rode through the front of the building ever learned about. 4 dark rides, 4 very different kinds of disappearance. At Six Flags Great Adventure, a structure classified as temporary for 5 straight years burned with 8 teenagers inside it because a fire inspector had never once been required to walk through it. The trial that followed ended in acquittal. The fire code that followed exists in every state today. At Dreamland, a leak in a dark ride's boat trough and a kicked-over bucket of tar destroyed the largest amusement park in America in 3.5 hours, killed 60 to 80 animals, and erased a piece of Coney Island history that most people who visit the boardwalk today have never heard of. At Blackpool Pleasure Beach, a fire in May 2004 damaged 3 attractions. 2 of them were repaired and returned. Trauma Towers was not. No announcement explained why. No closure date was given. The ride simply stopped existing, and the park moved on without saying so. And at Disneyland Paris, a man doing the unglamorous work of keeping a haunted house's lights running was killed by the electricity behind its walls, inside a building whose entire purpose was to make people believe, just for a few minutes, that they were somewhere genuinely haunted. None of these closures came with a press conference. None of them came with a plaque. In 3 of the 4, the public explanation, when one existed at all, was a few lines in a local news brief, followed by silence, followed by a reopening, or a quiet exit from the map entirely. Dark rides are built to make you believe, for the length of one ride cycle, that something dangerous is happening just out of sight. In these 4 cases, it was. The lights came back on. The story didn't always follow. This has been Abandoned Thrills. Subscribe. We'll be here next week.